wind within the Eastern Institution courtyard had yet to settle when a figure descended like a blazing star. "Senior brother Tang!" Voices rang out one after another. The tension that had choked the crowd only moments ago dissolving into relief. The disciples who had been trembling with unease suddenly straightened their backs, as though the mere arrival of this man had restored their courage. That youth was Tang Jiu, a name that echoed like thunder within the Eastern Institution. Ranked ninth among all its disciples, his strength stood at the very peak of the consummate level, and even surpassed it by 3 stars. A prodigy born perhaps once in 10,000 years, a figure whose rise had carved a legend across decades. His very name bore the mark of his standing, Tang Jiu. Years ago, he had been Tang Shi, and in the future, he might yet become Tang Ba, or even Tang Chi, as his dominance climbed ever higher. Now his gaze fell upon the scene before him. "Release him," Tang Jiu spoke, his voice cold as iron, yet burning with suppressed fury. His eyes shone like twin flames, and along his bare arms, crimson divine patterns shimmered, etched like molten metal, stretching from the back of his hands up to his shoulders. They pulsed faintly, like a beast breathing beneath the skin. Confidence, dominance. These were the hallmarks of an elite. But before him, Ling Han stood unmoved. Under his foot lay Yang Shuang, trampled like a defeated dog, exactly as Yang Shuang had humiliated Jin Jihui earlier. Ling Han's gaze met Tang Jiu's without the slightest ripple. "Why should I?" he asked calmly. Tang Jiu's expression darkened instantly. "Because I, Tang Jiu, said so," he declared, his voice turning sinister, his anger already ignited by Ling Han's defiance. Ling Han merely shook his head, as if dismissing a trivial matter. "Tang Jiu? Never heard of you." The words fell like a slap across Tang Jiu's face. "You're seeking death!" No more words were needed. Shua, a streak of chilling light tore through the air, aimed directly at Ling Han's throat. At some unknown moment, a curved bao had appeared in Tang Jiu's hands, and its attack was as swift as lightning, merciless and precise. But Ling Han moved first. With a single kick, he sent Yang Shuang flying into the air. Pooh! The beam of light struck. Blood sprayed violently. Yet it was not Ling Han who was hit. Instead, Yang Shuang's rear was pierced clean through by Tang Jiu's attack. Ling Han burst into laughter, his tone dripping with mockery. "Tsk, what is this? Some forbidden affection between you two? Why are you aiming for his ants?" Yang Shuang's face twisted with grievance as he looked toward Tang Jiu, his heart screaming in silent protest. "Can't you aim properly? Why are you hitting me?" Tang Jiu's fury surged like a volcano. He pointed at Ling Han and roared, "If you have any guts, release him. Let us fight without restraint." But Ling Han only smiled faintly. "This," he said, lifting Yang Shuang by the neck, "this isn't a hostage." His origin power surged. Yang Shuang's body straightened unnaturally, stiff as iron. "It's my new treasured sword." Ling Han swung him slightly, as though testing the weight. A human sword, or perhaps a bitch human. Yang Shuang's spirit nearly shattered. All of this over a sword he had snatched. Was such humiliation truly necessary? Tang Jiu's voice grew colder. "Ling Han, your actions disgust me." Ling Han scoffed without hesitation. "Who are you? Why should I care what you think?" The word struck deeper than any blade. Tang Jiu trembled with rage. "Since you dare cause trouble in our Eastern institution, then don't even think about leaving in one piece," he snarled. "Junior brother Yang, endure it. The Academy's honor outweighs your life." And with that, he attacked in full force. No more restraint. Ling Han raised his sword. Yang Shuang, clang, boom. The battlefield erupted. Under Ling Han's terrifying strength, wielding a human body was no burden at all. Yet for Yang Shuang, it was a descent into living hell. He was struck by Ling Han's sword intent from within, while simultaneously enduring Tang Jiu's violent attacks from without. Bones shattered, one after another. In mere moments, dozens had broken. If this continued, he would die. Ling Han's eyes flickered. Then he tossed Yang Shuang aside. Enough. He had already inflicted severe injuries, and justice was on his side. To kill Yang Shuang now would bring endless trouble. There was no need to cross that line, but Tang Jiu had already lost all restraint. "Die!" he roared, his attacks growing even more ferocious. Ling Han chuckled softly. And then, the 7-kill subduing soul technique, an invisible force surged forth like a silent storm. Tang Jiu's movements faltered instantly. His mind trembled, his rhythm shattered. Ling Han's fist came crashing down. Boom! Tang Jiu barely managed to defend. This technique struck directly at the divine sense, rare, extremely rare. Even though Tang Jiu's cultivation was higher, his divine sense was not necessarily stronger, and thus his battle prowess plummeted. The two clashed again and again. Each time Tang Jiu gathered momentum, Ling Han's spiritual attack struck. Each time he sought to unleash his full strength, he was dragged back down, forced, suppressed, reduced. Tang Jiu's fury reached madness. He could clearly overpower Ling Han, yet he could only display 10, perhaps 20% of his strength. Never had he fought such a suffocating battle. He felt as though he might vomit blood. Around them, the spectators stood stunned. Is Ling Han defying the heavens? How many stars above has his battle prowess reached? One voice spoke. It's not that Ling Han is stronger, it's that senior brother Tang has been weakened. Another countered. But isn't that still Ling Han's ability? Doesn't that count as his strength? Silence followed. Spiritual techniques, too rare. Almost no one cultivated defenses against them anymore. So what was Ling Han's true level? Late stage consummate or 3 stars above the peak? The battle continued. Tang Jiu leapt back. Enough. He could not continue. If he did, he would truly go mad. Finished? Ling Han asked, smiling faintly. Tang Jiu said nothing. He glared. Then, with a flick of his sleeves, he turned and left. He could not defeat Ling Han, and worse, Ling Han had only just reached the high extreme stage, while he, Tang Jiu, had been at the consummate level for years. This was not a fair fight. It was him bullying the weak. Yet even so, he had failed. What meaning remained in continuing? As Tang Jiu disappeared, the Eastern institution fell into silence. Only 8 disciples stood above him, and none were present. Summoning Tang Jiu had already been a stroke of fortune, yet even he had failed. What more could they do? Ling Han turned, smiling at Jin Jihui. Brother Jin, shall we go? Jin Jihui nodded. And so, before countless eyes filled with anger and helplessness, the two walked through the gates of the Eastern institution, as if it were nothing more than a road. Behind them, disciples followed, fists clenched, hearts burning. Are they really treating our Eastern institution as a shortcut? Jin Jihui frowned, confused. Brother Ling, why do they keep following us? And why was I targeted just for visiting you? Ling Han laughed. Brother Jin, you may not know. And as they walked, Scarlet Heaven Academy, divided into 4 great institutions, their rivalries, their pride, their invisible boundaries. As Jin Jihui listened, his expression darkened with realization. So, I brought this upon myself. Ling Han patted his shoulder, then pointed to the sword in his hand. Brother Jin, you forged this, didn't you? Jin Jihui's face lit up instantly. Yes, that's right. His voice carried excitement, pride, and the weight of countless years. This sword was forged from a piece of extraterrestrial meteoric metal. The sword forge manor tested it extensively and concluded it was merely level 1 godly metal. But I refused to accept that. For thousands of years I studied it, and I discovered this metal is alive. It can grow. His eyes burned with passion. For tens of thousands of years I pursued one goal, to preserve its growth even after forging it into a sword, to maintain its shape, its power, its potential. His voice trembled slightly. And now, I have succeeded. The sword gleamed faintly in Ling Han's hand, as if it, too, understood the weight of those words. In the vast and ever-shifting world of cultivation, Ling Han had seen countless treasures, divine artifacts forged in the fires of heaven and earth, weapons that could shake mountains and split rivers. Yet even he could not help but feel a flicker of astonishment rising within his heart when he heard Jin Jihui's words, a divine sword that could grow. The idea itself seemed almost absurd, yet it stirred something deep within him. For any cultivator, the ultimate dream was simple. Obtain a high-grade god tool and wield it for life, a weapon that could accompany one from humble beginnings to the peak of existence. Something like the 9-demon sword, whose power could elevate one's combat strength endlessly. But reality was far harsher. High-grade god tools were not things one could simply acquire at will. Even if one miraculously obtained such a treasure, mastering it was another trial entirely. The story of the Eternity Sky Emperor still lingered in the annals of legend, an existence of terrifying might who had lost an arm merely trying to reclaim the 9-demon sword. And even that success had only been possible because the sword originally belonged to the Chang clan. Had it been anyone else, even someone as peerless as Empress Luan Xing, they would have failed. Thus, for most cultivators, the dream of wielding a single supreme weapon for life was nothing more than a fantasy. Only under extremely rare circumstances, where an unparalleled elite devoted endless time and effort to refining a weapon for their descendant, could such a miracle occur. Only then could a mountain river tier cultivator wield a weapon of sun moon tier, or even heavenly body tier. But such cases were exceedingly rare, and worse still, such reliance often crippled the cultivator's own growth. Ordinarily, cultivators followed a different path. They wielded weapons suited to their current realm and nurtured them with their martial intent day after day, year after year. Over countless years, the weapon would awaken its own spirit, gradually transforming into a true god tool. For mountain river tier cultivators, advancing even a single minor level could take millennia. Naturally, they had all the time in the world to nurture a single weapon, but Ling Han was different. His rise was like a storm tearing through the heavens. In just 2 short years, he had already reached the high extreme of the mountain river tier. Such speed left no room to slowly nurture a weapon into a god tool. But now, if this sword could truly grow alongside him, if it could evolve as he advanced, then he would never again need to worry about outgrowing his weapon. A rare spark of admiration flickered in Ling Han's eyes as he looked at Jin Jihui. "Brother Jin, you are truly a genius," he said sincerely. Yet Jin Jihui merely shook his head, his expression calm. "I did not create anything miraculous," he replied. "I only discovered the unique properties of this metal and found a way to forge it without destroying that trait." His gaze lingered on the sword. "In this entire world, there is only one such piece of godly metal. I could never forge a second blade like this." Ling Han slowly drew the sword from its sheath. A faint chill spread through the air, but it was underwhelming. The aura it emitted was weak, barely above that of an ordinary weapon. It could not even be considered a true god tool, yet Ling Han's eyes shone brighter. "The greatest divine sword in the world," he murmured softly. Then, turning to Jin Jihui, he asked, "How do I improve it?" Jin Jihui's eyes lit up instantly, excitement surging through him like a blazing fire. "Through battle," he declared. "Let it clash against other weapons. Let it cut, devour, and absorb. Each strike will allow it to swallow the essence of what it destroys and grow stronger." Ling Han frowned slightly, pondering. "So, I cannot skip levels? I cannot simply use level 2 or level 3 godly metal to instantly strengthen it?" Jin Jihui shook his head firmly. "No, it must grow step by step, just like cultivation itself." Ling Han let out a soft sigh before nodding. Then he clasped his hands. "Brother Jin, you have truly done me a great favor. Not only did I obtain such a treasure, but you personally delivered it to me." Jin Jihui smiled faintly. "This was a promise I made," he said. "And you saved my life once before. You were also the only one who believed in me. If I did not give this sword to you, I would not know who else could truly wield it." Ling Han laughed lightly. "Then I will not speak empty words. Thank you." Jin Jihui waved his hand. "Enough of that. Come. This is my first time in Point Star City. Surely as the host, you must treat me properly." Ling Han chuckled and led him away. He gathered the Rain Emperor and the others, and together they headed to a grand restaurant. Wine flowed like rivers, laughter echoed through the halls, and for a few days they indulged without restraint. After several days of revelry, Jin Jihui departed. Though he lacked the materials to forge another sword like this, his heart burned with even greater ambition to create weapons that defied all conventions. Meanwhile, Ling Han began his own experiment. He purchased a large quantity of level 1 godly metal. Though Jin Jihui's explanation was astonishing, Ling Han had never encountered such a material before. Naturally, his curiosity could not be suppressed. Within the Black Tower, he stood alone. The divine sword gleamed faintly in his hand. Without hesitation, he swung. Ding, 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 ding! The crisp echoes of metal clashing rang out endlessly. Though both were level 1 godly metal, the sword had undergone repeated tempering. Its strength far surpassed the unrefined slabs Ling Han had purchased. Under his forceful strikes, the metal shattered with ease, split cleanly with each swing. Then Ling Han's eyes narrowed. In that fleeting moment when the metal broke apart, Something, invisible, subtle, flowed into the sword. The change was incredibly faint. If not for the black tower amplifying his senses hundreds, perhaps thousands of times, he would never have noticed it. And a voice suddenly echoed. The small tower appeared, its tone filled with surprise. Your luck is quite decent. You've actually obtained devouring metal. Ling Han was startled. You know this material? The small tower puffed up with pride. Of course. Ling Han rolled his eyes slightly. Then stop being dramatic and explain. Or do you want to be struck by lightning? The small tower snorted before continuing. Devouring metal is extremely unique. At its starting point, it is no different from level 1 godly metal, but its potential is limitless. It paused briefly. Some even believe it could evolve into divine metal. Ling Han's heart trembled violently. Divine metal. He had heard of it before, an existence that surpassed all godly metals. Unlike godly metals, which were divided into levels, divine metal had no grades. Each piece was an ultimate treasure. And now, this sword could possibly reach that level? Ling Han sucked in a sharp breath. If Jin Jihui had known this, would he regret giving away this sword? Perhaps. But Ling Han quickly shook his head. For a swordsmith like Jin Jihui, the greatest joy was not possession, but creation. To forge a weapon that could one day shake the true dream. Keeping the sword would have been like casting a pearl before a swine. The small tower's voice interrupted his thoughts. Of course. This is only theoretical. Ling Han raised an eyebrow. To evolve devouring metal, the amount of godly metal required is astronomical, the small tower explained. And it can only devour materials of the same level as itself during each stage of growth. Ling Han's expression turned serious. That meant, to reach higher levels, he would need vast quantities of increasingly rare metals. And in the end, the small tower continued, how could there possibly be enough level 20 godly metal in this world? Ling Han nodded slowly. Even level 5 godly metal was scarce. Level 9 was as rare as heavenly body tier elites. Level 20? That would be as rare as Genesis tier beings. Where would he find such materials? He exhaled softly and waved the thought away. That was a concern for the distant future. For now, he raised the sword again. Slash! 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 Again and again he struck, treating the divine sword like a woodcutter's axe. With each swing, he infused his martial intent to it, gradually forging a connection. Over time, this sword would awaken. It would gain a spirit. It would become a true god tool. As the strikes continued, the slabs of godly metal began to lose their shine, their brilliance fading until they resembled dull scrap. Ling Han observed carefully. Just as expected, the essence has been devoured. He smiled faintly. Was this not similar to cultivation itself? To grow stronger, one must seize the essence of heaven and earth, refine it, and make it their own. This sword walked the same path. Ling Han looked at the blade in his hand. If it was to accompany him for countless years, if it was to witness his rise through the heavens, then it deserved a name. He narrowed his eyes slightly, a hint of amusement surfacing. Since you will follow me for a long, long time, you need a name worthy of your destiny. He paused. What name would sound truly overbearing?